IBM and I have partnered together on this podcast. The content is my own and does not necessarily reflect the views of IBM. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the CEO with Avrohom-HMC-Study. Today, I'd like to introduce a very special guest. She's the Senior Product Marketing Manager for IBM Systems. She has spent 13 plus years as a product marketing leader for B2B technology companies. It is my pleasure to welcome Misha Rangel. Welcome, Misha.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining. So, Misha, IBM just published the findings of an IT infrastructure study conducted by Forrester Research. Now, can you help us understand what are the current trends for IT infrastructure spending?
Yes, so we collaborated with Forrester on this research report and super excited to share the findings with you. At a high level, I think something that we found validated within the survey results was that it truly is a hybrid multi-cloud world out there. People are increasing infrastructure investment on all aspects, not only with public cloud, which is really not a surprise to us, but somewhat surprising is how much of an increase in investment companies are making outside of public cloud in other infrastructure such as on-premise as well as private cloud services.
Wow. And what's driving these conversations around the IT infrastructure refresh?
When it comes to refresh, something that's driving the conversation is really about hardware end of service. It's like any other product that has a warranty expiring. That's going to force the conversation on, do we renew? Do we get, do we upgrade to a new product, or do we look at other solutions? So the end of service has always driven the upgrade and refresh conversations. But what we're also seeing is those conversations are evolving to be more strategic in nature, because these are the times when companies need to revisit where their workloads sit. They may go through one of these refreshes every few years, and in a few years' time, workloads have changed. They need to reevaluate and make sure that, everything is working the most efficiently and the most cost effectively. So we're seeing a change in these conversations becoming more strategic.
Now, so it's interesting, you mentioned the warranty, and as you know, as soon as your warranty expires, everything breaks down. So as you know, many companies are delaying upgrading their infrastructure for various reasons, be it budget cuts, lack of resources, or something else. Mm-hmm. What are the ramifications of delaying an infrastructure upgrade?
Yeah, it's interesting because, the fear of an end of service is everything, all of a sudden Big Bang isn't going to work anymore. And that's rarely the case. What ends up happening is a company is very slowly opening themselves up to vulnerabilities, and very serious vulnerabilities at that. Some of the top concerns that become bigger risks when a refresh is delayed include security concerns, right? That's a huge one. Also, you start experiencing performance delays, which can have a ripple effect in impacting employee productivity, client experience. So it's kind of one of those slow boil instances where it doesn't happen all at once and it's easy to kick that can down the road. But when that does happen, all of a sudden you're waking up to a big problem.
For sure. I mean, we talked about security, and not a day goes by where we don't hear about data breaches. So, step one, we have to make sure we're running the latest software, which might require an up-to-date hardware in order to be able to properly secure your environment.
Absolutely. And, security doesn't stop at software. hardware has a security component as well. So a lot of times, if from a hardware perspective, your data is secure at that core level, you're reducing risk at the software or at the peripheral level as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Going back to what we were talking about earlier about public cloud and the different spending. So one of the things that the Forrester study talks about is that we're seeing growth in public cloud spending across all types of workloads. Now, does this refer also to mission critical workloads, or are there maybe any kind of workloads where perhaps an on-prem or hybrid configuration might be a better choice?
Absolutely. And this was a really fascinating part of the study. It was kind of my favorite in terms of the insights that we found from it. So although if you look at all workloads in total, public cloud seems to be kind of the default location to house those for both efficiency, cost effectiveness, et cetera. There are two types of workloads that are uniquely designed for a different home other than public cloud. One of those is what we call mission critical data. Mission critical data can be anything from credit card information of clients, CRM, your customer information, employee information as well, and from like ERP systems. So all of this can be classified as mission critical, meaning if something happened to this data, a business would really be in trouble. Mission critical for both privacy reasons as well as security and latency really needs to be housed and have special treatment, which a lot of times either comes in the form of a private cloud or on-premise. Traditionally, it's been housed on-premise. Private cloud is an emerging trend that we're seeing more adoption of, where this data kind of has the best of both worlds, where it's a virtual house in a cloud, but has a lot of the security and accessibility that you have on premise. The second type of workload that we're seeing prevalence outside of public cloud is what we call data-intensive workloads. And this is the fastest growing type of data. So all of those great AI applications, the wealth of analytics and just data and the exponential growth in it, it all has to be housed somewhere, both because of latency reasons. So a lot of this data is being updated very quickly, as well as cost effectiveness. So housing data in the cloud is a consumption-based model, and a lot of cloud providers charge for taking data from the cloud as well as putting it up. So it starts to add up quickly. So a lot of companies that were originally thinking, we'll just put all this in the cloud, the data has just grown such exponentially that they're really having to revisit things when they're getting their monthly bills.
Yeah, and I could definitely see how the hybrid cloud model would work as well, where if you have a model where you have some data intensive workloads and some of them not, so then you could mix and match.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's definitely an art and a science. There is no one answer, and technologists and IT leaders are having to constantly balance the trade-offs of performance and security and cost. It's no easy feat.
Yeah, and this is why a study like the one that Forrester conducted is so valuable to businesses, because it's really hard to know what is the ideal configuration for your business.
Absolutely. One interesting fact from the study was that a majority of IT leaders that were surveyed found a pushback when they suggested a strategy outside of the cloud. So for, line of business or, executive leaders, there is a default of, we should just put that in the cloud. It's smart to put everything in the cloud. So there really has to be some education done internally with other stakeholders as well as a company in terms of what options are and what some of the pros and cons and trade-offs of those would be.
Yeah, for sure. So, Misha, where can people go to learn more about the Forrester IT Infrastructure study?
Yes. So if you'd like to download the report, we have a special URL, ibm.biz / Avrohom-HMC-Study. So I'm sure you could flash that up on the screen or something as well. But yes, just go to that link and you'll be able to download, and we have a webinar coming up as well that you'll have access to view by visiting that link.
Awesome. Misha, where can people go to connect with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best. So my name again is Misha Rangel. I'm on LinkedIn, or you could connect with me via my email, which is misha.rangel@ibm.com.
Awesome. And I'll post all this information to the show notes as well, so people can just go right to it and connect with you.
Awesome.
Misha, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I could have one takeaway from this, it would be the elusive threat of infrastructure delays. It's one of those things that we see all the time that can be so easy, takes time, resources, but just being consistent with those can help so much with preventative, risks and threats to a company. So think of it as going to your annual checkup at your doctor's, right?
Which which just like going to the doctor's office, many people like to avoid it because nobody likes doctors.
Yeah, exactly. But, it helps us in the long run, right? It helps really avoid a lot of risk. So I think IT leaders have an extremely important role because they all know this. It's just, balancing and getting buy-in from stakeholders to really prioritize those, even though the threat is not imminent and looming.
Great. Misha, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I really enjoyed having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.